Hey everybody, welcome back to Barefoot Botany here at Dad Hobbies. Today we're going to show you how to properly trim, prune, and root the cuttings from this Golden Forsythia. Anybody over 65, any gardeners over 65 at least, will tell you that all you got to do is just cut it, stick it in the ground. And that's partially true. That works really well right after the spring bloom. You can take some of this new greener foliage, cut it anywhere, stick it in the ground. It'll most likely root and grow just fine. But we're into August here, and it's just not going to work as well with the fall and winter looming. So I'm going to show you how you can do this any time of the year and how to properly get a good quick root out of these Golden Forsythias so that you can propagate more and add to the beauty of your property. So let's get you in a little bit closer on these branches and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here's the branch that I pulled down before. This one is this year's growth. You can see how long this is too. It goes all the way back here. And you can also see that this was off of a prior pruning. So when you prune, they kind of split. So they deviate, it's called. Up here too, you can see where there was a pruning and it split off, another pruning, it split off. And you can see all this new growth back in here. This was all from previous cuttings and prunings. We've had this, this thing was very short. It was about 1.5 feet tall, and you saw in the intro there how tall it is now. This is probably about 12 to 13 years of growth on this plant, but you can see on the inside I did a really heavy prune because it got smacked with a lot of snow this year. Oh, there's a little bee friend. It got hit with a lot of snow this year and it fell over, so I had to heavily prune at the top here, not along the back but towards the middle, and you can see all this brand new growth in here. That is the good stuff. That's what we're going to want to take. But I will show you one that I took about a month ago that was actually some of the older woodier growth like this, and you can see that it's still working, but this is the quick method of doing it. So I got my cutters here. Let's take one from here just because that one's nice and easy to see. So you can see the top, that's all very, very fresh, you know, last week's growth basically, and it goes all the way down to its base way down in there. So what we're going to do is cut here, and I'll show you. So the quick method and the best way to get a quick rooting is to cut below this node here. These are called the nodes, the leaf nodes. You want to cut below there because not only will you get the roots out the base of it, you'll also get roots on these nodes once we cut them off. So any exposed root will actually grow as a root. Now we also want to take off a few leaves, and we'll go through that once we get into the backyard and get into our planting pot. But for right now, we want to take out that piece right there. So I would get this guy out of the way because he's just in the way. So we want to cut right about there. So we'll take that off and go grab it. So you see it was right below that leaf node, and still get a little bit down further. And we'll take off those 2 leaves. So let's take it in the backyard. And I'm going to grab a few more from this plant and we'll show you how to plant those. Back at the bench now, we have the 3 cuttings that I did. This is the one that you saw me do, the smaller one. And then these are the 2 larger woody cuttings that I'm going to show you a little bit of what we can do with those. And then we have our rooting hormone. I pretty much just use whatever I can get my hands on, as long as it has this indole 3 in it that you can see right there. Anything with that, at least 0.01% will work. And of course our handy dandy trimmers. And we do have a pot of soil here. This is just, you know, random stuff. It was some spent soil from another plant and just some potting soil. Anything without fertilizer. We don't want stuff with fertilizer. It'll have weird reactions with the rooting hormone. Plus we don't want to push leaves. We want to push roots. So anything with fertilizer will push leaf growth. That's what it's supposed to do. So I just use this really basic stuff I get at Walmart for like $5. It's mostly peat, and it works great. There's no fertilizer in it at all. So we're gonna take that point down here where we had the leaves growing and where those leaf nodes were on that base. We're just gonna take and cut them off. And you'll see now that left a little bit of a scar there, which is perfect because that's where a root will grow. And we're also going to cut this up a little bit. Be very careful doing this. And we're going to cut it up so that it exposes a little bit more of the stem, and you can leave that just like so. Perfect. So you see that now cuts up so it just exposes some more of the stem. And then a very simple process here. Take our rooting hormone, and you can see the powder down in there. Just dip that in so it's nice and covered. And then we will stick that right into the soil. And then we're going to cut back to about here above the next node, just so it only has a few leaves, because what we want to do is make sure that this plant has very few leaves to work on, and we don't want it to grow leaves, we want it to grow roots. So we want all of this energy to go back down into the base of the plant, pack in around it, just so that we're sure that all that rooting hormone is touching the dirt, because it's just wonderful stuff. Now with these thicker ones, we can just jam this thing right in the ground, but what I like to do is come up a little bit higher and get that super duper new growth. So you can see where the difference is, where the split is here. Let's see if I can get you to focus. So there's this here where it's a little bit darker going up into the lighter growth. You can tell, you can see the color difference between these two. This is the newest growth. Now if you go up even higher, you can see an even brighter green up here. That's the stuff probably from the last week or two up in here. So we do not want to go back past this, go below that. So we're going to cut up a little bit higher here to get some really good young stuff. And again, trim off those leaves. We'll cut up and do the opposite direction here, kind of like we're whittling. So we'll do them all just slightly different so you can see the variations. For this, it's all doing the same thing. In the rooting hormone, you don't want to knock a lot off. You want to get it nice and be generous with it. Stuff ain't cheap, but it ain't expensive. So get that guy in there. And I think we're going to take off the majority of this top growth. We'll make that one kind of short. So that'll be a little cute one. That was the top one. And then we're going to take a piece from this woody base, again below the node, and we'll take off these leaf nodes. And I'm going to actually cut along this edge because they're showing you all different variations of rooting forsythia today. So I'm actually going to cut into the stem here like that, and we'll cut it back so that it only has these two leaves above the node. So that's it right there. We'll do the rooting hormone in that one and stick that in the pot as well. So that's kind of like rooting forsythia 3 ways. And then we end up with this little pot like this. Now what I did here was I pre-wet the medium, which is the potting soil there, and I pre-wet it just so that the rooting hormone immediately had something to grasp onto. But I'm going to go ahead and water it down again. Now at this point, at this stage, you want to make sure the leaves get wet. You're going to be keeping this in the shade. So since it's not a ton, I'm going to really soak this down in a second here, but since it's not a ton, they have 0 roots at all, they won't be getting a lot within the next couple of days. You want to make sure the leaves get wet because they are going to use transpiration to absorb water through the leaves. So very simple, what plants need to grow: sun and water and dirt. We gave them the dirt, we're giving them the water, we're taking away the sun. So they're going to be doing everything they need as far as water through their leaves, and they're going to take a little break from the sun, sit over in the shade for a while so that they don't get too burned out. Now, I'm going to grab one that I did a couple weeks ago and show you the difference. This is a pot that I have a few things going in. There's always a lot going on around here. So here's one that I did a couple weeks ago, and I used a woody piece of the tree, which worked really well. And then this was a piece that actually just fell off this other side. And you can see in here, I rooted that. That was just yesterday. And you can see that the leaves really did not wilt, and I didn't cut anything back or anything like that. So I'm rooting that just as is, which is perfectly fine. You can do that. This one was from a couple weeks ago, maybe about 3 weeks ago. And I just cut a chunk off. I lopped off the top here where the woody part was, where the new growth was, and I'm rooting it as wood just to show you that you can do that as well. Forsythia is so easy to root, but in order to get a nice quick root, you want to do it the right way. So I'm actually going to do what you should not do and pull this one out just so I can show you how it is rooting. So I'm just going to real gently pull that out, not try to disturb anything much at all. But you can see that it already started pushing feeder roots. And as I brush this off, this is getting callus around the cut that I made. And if we flip it over, yep, right here, so you can see root nodes coming, and that was about 2 or 3 weeks on a woody piece. So those new growth, we're going to see a lot better rooting on those. Let me just make a little spot for him, get him back down deep so he can continue to do his good work. We're going to hit him with a little bit of water too, just as a thank you for helping us out today. And we'll go back to our project for today with these guys. So I'm going to cut up all these other ones. We don't want to waste anything, obviously, if we're trimming off. But when I trim, I take everything. I give these away to people. I'll just give them this and trim them, put it in some green powder, hand it to them and say, here, stick that in the ground somewhere and keep some water on it. Now we're going to keep these moist, not damp. We're just going to keep the soil, have some moisture in it for the next week or so, and then we're gonna kind of ease up on really soaking it. But I water once a day on these. I use pots that have holes in the bottom so that they can drain through. Really good drainage on these, and some nice dense damp soil is going to do wonders. Now there's lots of people, because it does absorb water by transpiration, which is through the leaves. There's a lot of people who will either do these in a greenhouse where they can get a lot of humidity, or they'll use a sealed box. But I wanted to show you that you can root these things just outside in the open air, as long as you keep them watered, keep the leaves moist, keep the soil moist and damp. You're going to be good to go. Forsythia is super easy to grow. It grows quickly, it roots really well. It is just a gardener's dream, but I wanted to show you guys the proper way to do it, because it's different than, I think, the perception with a lot of this stuff. So that's it for us here at the Barefoot Botany here on Dad Hobbies. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you're new. Love all the new subscribers that are coming in with all of our gardening and bonsai videos that we're putting out now towards the end of the season. We're going to continue with all of this, since this is one of my main hobbies, is gardening, so I love it. So thank you guys so much for watching. God bless and stay green.